Welcome back to the Friday Club. This is our weekly newsletter for school marketing and admissions teams. This week I'm taking my break time with Lydia Horbury, Director of External Relations at Rishworth School. Lydia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Brilliant to have you on, and I know we've got lots to talk about. So you're Director of External Relations at Rishworth School, so a co-ed independent school in West Yorkshire. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be Director of External Relations at Rishworth, please?
Yeah, so I actually started off in teaching. So for many years, I was a business studies teacher. One of my first posts was at Harrogate Ladies College, where I was always also a house mistress. And I moved on and ended up working in the FE sector, where I worked for several years teaching business. And all the children that I met, I say, why are you doing business? Why have you chosen this? And they all said, oh, because we want to run our own businesses, miss. So from there, I had the idea of setting up an enterprise academy. So we worked with Peter Jones from Dragon's Den and set up an enterprise academy where students would basically run micro businesses, and all of their coursework was around those micro businesses. So as a result, I thought, well, to make this really useful and to get them the advice they need, I started liaising with the business community a lot. So they would come in and kind of regularly talk to students, give them advice, give them help. I tried to pick people who were, quite often I picked people who were youthful that they could identify with, to try and encourage them and to inspire them. And as a result, I became quite well known in the local business community. And then there was a change at the college, and the current commercial person had left, and they said to me, look, you're very well connected. It was a really large college. It was the 10th largest in the UK. We'd like you to kind of step into his shoes, but it means no teaching. So that was kind of a big change, but it was kind of a challenge I think I was ready for. And from there, then again, more changes at the college, cuts in FE, and they said, well, my background is marketing, you see, and I've been teaching the CIM there for years. And they said, well, can you take on the marketing department as well? So I said, yes. And so I had 3 really solid, great years there in that role, in a non-teaching role. Really, really enjoyed it. And then I got pregnant. And whilst I was on maternity leave, you know how you do, you get the emails to your inbox. I wasn't necessarily looking to leave. And I saw this job pop up at Rishworth School, which is very close to where I live. And we've got a lot of family history here. So my father was a boarder at the school. My uncle was too. And even my grandfather was a boarder here. So I thought, this must be fate, really. Kind of all the stars are aligning, because it's a boarding school and I've got my boarding school qualifications. It's external relations, which is what I'm doing now. And with all the family history and with my own child on the way, and I've been thinking about schools for him too. So I was delighted when I got it, and I've been here for just under a year and a half now.
Amazing. I really love hearing people's stories about how they got into the role, and I don't think we've had anyone on yet, Lydia, who started working in the education sector and then moved into marketing. They've normally come from like a corporate background, so really, really interesting to see someone who's come from teaching and then into marketing and how that worked out for them. Definitely sounds like things aligned for you. Yeah,
but I think having a background in teaching really helps, and I feel that the staff really appreciate it. So when I'm talking to them about things that we've got planned, or I'm having staff forums and talking about what activities we could undertake to attract learners, I understand the teaching background automatically, and they really respect that. So I think that really works well. It just gives me a slightly different, I think, viewpoint to other marketers.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I love about your school is the motto, which is deeds, not words. And you've told me before, Lydia, that you can always spot a former Rishworthian from the way they behave. What does that motto mean to you, and how is it distilled into your students and alumni?
So our students are very, I'd say they're very hands-on, they're very practical. The way that we teach them as well is very practical. We have a big program of what we call enrichment and extension. So every day at 3:30 for the final hour of the school day, students are allowed to pick from a smorgasbord, about 90 different activities. Some of them are for fun, So the enrichment element. So every sport under the sun, dry slip skiing, rock climbing, rugby, all the teams, all of the art things, the art club, the ceramics, astronomy, you know, everything really. And then we also have our extension, which is for them to extend their studies. So it could be Latin for fun, or it could be we have like a medical society. And that's all about, because I think we have this ethos really of learning doesn't just take place in the classroom. We find it's like a really good way of reinforcing things. So our learners, yeah, absolutely. And as they go into adult life, you can literally almost pick out an old Rishworthian. So number one, they're always passionate about the school. But the other thing is that we instill quite old-fashioned traditional values. So, you know, manners are very important. Being kind to everyone is very important. We're a very small, like, family school. People socialize across year groups, all that kind of thing. So, and also they're just not scared to roll their sleeves up. You know, I mean, I think the best example really is if you go down to our prep school, we have a forest school within it. So you see these little dots from 3 upwards, and they've got their little uniforms on, but they've also got their faces all squished up, covered in mud, and they're all grinning and rosy cheeked. You know, that's what being a Rishworthian is all about.
Really love that. One of the additional things that I was really looking forward to talking to you today about, Lydia, was the types of films that you've used for your marketing and for your admissions, because you've told me that some are professionally produced and some have been user generated. What types of video do you have, and when do you differentiate in terms of which one you'll use?
Okay, so we started getting into the idea of TV advertising, something that I'd done before, and we worked with Sky to identify, you know, geographically where we wanted it to go. I was able to specify that I needed there need to be children in the household between X and Y ages, and also we looked at like the income of the household because we are a fee-paying school. And the first advert that we did, we'd worked with Miles Latham. I think I've seen him on here before. I saw that one, brilliant. And it was a kind of a really fabulous film all about the school, very high production values. We absolutely loved that film. So we got it out there on adverts, and the phone, honestly, it was ringing off the hook. And people kept saying things like, "We saw your advert on TV and we thought it must be a sign." So, you know, and then putting, you know, when's your next open day? Can we come along? So it was really good. But then it was so successful, I thought, right, I would like to do this again, but I wanted to focus specifically on the sixth form. And I'm sure, as my colleagues are aware, that you work in marketing, it's quite an expensive thing to do, because you have the cost of the production, and then there's what you're paying the TV company, and, you know, things like Clearcast and licensing and that kind of stuff. So we decided to make our own. So using a student who'd been a sixth form the previous year and some other students that were getting involved, from our boarders actually. And so they created this film from like their perspective, what they felt life was like at Rishworth School. We even got our headmaster in on the action, and he did like the voiceover for it. Which was great. And again, we put that out on TV. And I think that particularly when you're looking at sixth form and sixth form life, students nowadays are very savvy. I think that parents have a lot more input at, for example, year 7 when they're about to start a school. I think a lot of parents say to their children as they kind of finish their GCSEs, you know, right, well, where is it you want to go? And again, it's a lot more about the students. So they don't want to feel like they're being sold to in a slick way. And that's not what it's about. It was about, this ad was the style of giving information from a student perspective, just, you know, what it's like. So a lot of it was quite action based about, you know, real scenarios and what people were doing. And I absolutely think that there is a market for them both. Interestingly as well, we also used, we had a house mistress at the time who spoke fluent Mandarin. So we got her to do voiceovers for the ads that we then used in video format, but those went out to our agents in China as well. And that was really well received. So it was just like another handy way of making it go further for us.
Definitely. And it's really interesting to hear about a video that's aimed at the sixth formers, so the students themselves, rather than primarily the parents. I don't think we've discussed that before on the Friday Club. So really useful insight to have that. So thank you. It sounds really successful for you. So Lydia, you have really great facilities at Rishworth, and I know that you've recently embarked on a new venture to grow the Rishworth International Football Academy. Can you tell us a bit more about that and, well, how it started and how that changes anything about your marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a really sporty school anyway. I think about 10% of our upper school have national representative honours in a whole variety of sports. Our head girl is on Team GB, she's a pentathlete, the under 18s, for example. And so that's something that always attracts people to the school. And we've always traditionally been a rugby playing school. I mean, 2 of our ex-students are currently on the England rugby squad, so George Ford and Dan Kelly. And but what I was finding was that people, when they were applying, and particularly from overseas, they were saying, you know, when we asked them about their hobbies and interests, they'd be saying they like playing football. And there aren't that many private schools that actually play football and put out a squad. I mean, they do, but it's just not as common as rugby. And there was just real feeling that, particularly with our international students, particularly those students coming from Asia, really were wanting to play football, and you know, and a lot of our day children as well. So we had a discussion with a company called Streetwork Soccer, who are actually a charity, and what they do is they help set up football teams, and maybe they get contracts from the government in deprived areas, so where they're wanting to improve social cohesion, or you know, there's not much to do and there's social problems, so they think, well, let's start and get people playing football. And we about 10 years ago at the school, there'd been actually some students that had come over from the Far East, and they'd had a Rishworth education, and they had football training with them, and it worked really well, and both of them went on to get professional careers in football. So they said, look, shall we have a look at this? We really think there's a market for it. You know, the best of British in terms of education, and also British football being so kind of famous. Now, I know that there are a lot of academies out there, you know, this isn't completely new, but what we were looking at is the idea of bringing them in at 13. There's a lot of academies that are available out there. They start at, say, 16 years old. And I think, you know, the viewpoint, as I'm told, is that if you really, really want to get into football and you're desperate to be a professional player, it's too late to start playing at that point. So it was this kind of combination of factors. So it starts in September. The marketing is all out there. And yeah, we're just really, really excited for it to start.
Do you use any of those famous alumni like George Ford in the admissions and marketing collateral?
Yes, we do. In fact, we have a rugby academy. And so she's the face of that. Now, you know, he lives quite locally. He comes in during lockdown. He came and used our gym facilities all of the time. So training session is taped on the wall. So we do. I even had an email from somebody the other day. I think they were in New Zealand, and the email just said, "Dear admissions, is it true that George Ford learnt how to kick at your school?" So you know, so that kind of thing is brilliant. I just see it more as, rather than using like a famous person, I think it's just more about showing people that, you know, where you can be. I think it's that, you know, it's like I say, it's not about the name, it's about, you know, these are the pathways that you can follow, and these people went to our school, and this is what you can do too. I mean, we even had John Noakes from Blue Peter many years ago as a presenter here as a boarder, and he used to talk in interviews about how he loved it at Rishworth School. And in fact, and this was reported in the papers, so I'm not breaking a confidence here, but when he did pass away, the family approached us and said it's his wish that some of his ashes are scattered here. So they went up to top pitch, which is where our lads play rugby, and it was fired into the sky in a rocket that then exploded. So that's love for the school, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. I love hearing stories about it. It's so personal, and I think it's easy to relate to somebody who has been at the school and those individual stories, sometimes more so than it is the whole build, like everything in one go that we might put on our website or in a prospectus. So brilliant.
I think our alumni are really good, and we ask our ORs, or Old Rishworthians, in a lot. So we have lots of days, and we call them Aspiration days. So kind of careers days, so for our current students as well. And yes, sometimes that'd be someone who's well known, or somebody who's very successful in their field, and bringing those people in, particularly those that left, say, it was about 5 years ago. So they might not necessarily have known some of the children at the time they were at school, but they're talking as a Rishworthian who knows all the teachers and knows what the school is like, and saying, right, well, this was my path and this is what I did, and this is how Rishworth helped me as well. I think it's a really positive thing to do, and it works really well for us.
It sounds it. One of the other things that you've spoken to me about before, Lydia, was how you go about recruiting students, perhaps from new territories overseas. And we do hear a lot from guest speakers about the relationship they have with overseas agents. Do you have any tips for finding agents with expertise in new regions, or working with them to build a funnel?
So with Riva, with the football academy, that's been different for us, because we've had to start to work with a different kind of agent. For us, we're looking for young people who have a talent in football. It's not just people who want to be footballers, they need to come here ready to do the training. So we had to start to get in touch with people who are specifically sports agents, but within education. So that was interesting, and that's led us to some territories that we've not really dipped our toe in. So there is an agent who's based in Beverly Hills, that's actually in the US, that's done quite a bit of recruitment for the football academy. There's a lot of interest from the US coming our way. And again, there was somebody as well who's specific in Germany and specific in the UAE. And like I say, those are markets that we don't normally recruit our boarders from. We're more mainland Europe and some from Asia. So that's been interesting. And I think the other thing to say is, so I started here just over a year ago. And whilst obviously schools have relationships with agents, quite often there's quite a personal rapport between an agent and an individual person. So when I came in, I inherited some relationships with some agents who were brought in by my predecessor. So, and then when they moved on, sometimes those agents kind of go with. So I wanted to look at widening the net. And for me, and again, I'm sure, lots of education marketers listening will be aware, but I love the British Boarding School Week, the sessions that they have. I know there's one coming up soon in March to meet agents. And I know it's borne fruit for us as well. So we've developed those relationships, and that has obviously then led to us getting more students. But it's about not just having that one conversation, although that's a great starting point and a great way to be introduced. But I found it was really imperative to ensure that I had electronic packs as well to go on, because for some people that had never been to Rishworth School, never even heard of us, it was really important for me to try and paint a picture of what the school is like, because it's horses for courses, isn't it? I know that Rishworth School isn't for everyone. If you're very hands-on and you like getting really involved and you love a small school, and that idea of being quite a family orientated place in the beautiful Ryburn Valley, which is in the countryside, then this is heaven for you. There are some people that don't want that. So it was really important that I was able to somehow manage to explain that to people. So as they're meeting families and making those introductions and recommendations, that they really had a sense of what was the heart of the school. So those kind of follow-up things that I put together, I think, were all designed again to give help with that feeling. And also it's collateral then that agents can use with families, particularly over the last year and a half. Because of COVID, we haven't had the travel, people aren't visiting, so it was a way, and obviously parents are quite scared of sending their children away, so it was a way of trying to, like I say, give that real insight. So we worked really hard on putting that pack together, and then it's just regularly touching base. And I find that the agents that are new to us that we work with, we're just really hot on talking to them regularly, giving them updates for their specific learners. If there's social media, we've got social media. So for example, there was somebody who was doing some rock climbing. We put a post out there. So I sent the agent and tagged them in the picture, that kind of thing. And then it's stuff that then they can use when they're talking to prospective families. So I think it's about relationships, it's about people, and it's about talking, which I do a lot of.
Well, it sounds like you do a really good job of the agent relationship side. And I think those little tips about making it as easy as possible for agents are really useful as well. So we are coming to the end of our interview time this morning. Just very quickly before we wrap up, Lydia, can I ask you what your favourite thing is about working in independent education?
Ooh.
Hard question.
It is. Okay, so I have worked in independent, obviously at Rishworth and previously at Harrogate Ladies, and I've worked in the state sector in three different institutions. So I would say my favourite things, very specific to me, is that I find the state sector is so caught up in red tape all of the time. And I'm one of those people, if I see a problem, I want to fix that problem, and normally it's just a common sense thing. And it used to frustrate me that I could see things and I'd be like, this is wrong. This isn't a good student experience. Why are we doing this? Whereas in the independent sector, we have a small SLT here. So if there is anything that we want to change, if there was a problem, then we can react so quickly and we can improve things. And so I feel a lot prouder, I think, of the product that's out there, because I really believe in the education that Rishworth offers, and I can't always say that's been true in the past.
It really comes across how you talk about Rishworth, and I've really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank you for being a brilliant guest for the Friday Club. I know this will help lots of our subscribers who watch these interviews. So we're really super grateful, Lydia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. And if anyone wants to get in touch via LinkedIn to talk through anything further or to ask any questions about stuff that we've discussed today, I'm more than happy.
Thank you, Lydia.